Level 1. One van, one cable. You reach the driveway of an old duplex after midnight. The old white service van ticks beside the curb. On the cracked driveway concrete, you read $38,000 per year in the old receipt book. The old receipt book lies tucked under the van seat. You compare $110,000 annual emergency drain cleaning demand to the neighborhood notes. The neighborhood notes sit penciled inside the receipt book. Your rubber gloves are already tight. You step to the rear door of the van. You face the rusted drum drain cleaning machine. You pull the rusted drum machine out of the van by its metal handle. The metal handle bites through the rubber gloves. You lower the machine onto the driveway. You strap the headlamp across your forehead. You leave the rear door of the van. At the basement stairs, you drag the rusted drum machine down one step at a time. The machine bumps the stair edge. You brace the drum against your thigh. Halfway down the basement stairs, you keep one gloved hand on the black cable loop. You reach the basement laundry room. The machine tilts against your hip. On the wet concrete, you set the dirty water bucket beside the floor drain. You kneel beside the floor drain. You twist off the cleanout cap with the adjustable wrench. The headlamp beam stays on the cleanout opening. You place the cap beside the bucket. You fit the blunt cutter head onto the black cable. You feed the black cable into the pipe. Your shoulder presses forward. Beside the floor drain, you squeeze the trigger. You brace your boot against the wet concrete. The motor jerks against your hands. You stop the spinning cable. Your gloves are dirty. You swap the blunt head for the spiral cutter head. You feed the black cable again. Both arms lock against the drum. The motor jerks harder. You hold the trigger grip steady. You pull a clump of hair and grease from the cable. The clump drops into the bucket. From the laundry sink, you run water. You watch the floor drain swallow the flow cleanly. You wipe the black cable with the rag. You wind the cable back into the rusted drum. At the customer's kitchen door, you keep the rubber gloves on. You reach for the old receipt book. You tear a paper receipt from the old receipt book. The paper receipt stays between two dirty fingers. You hold the old book against your chest. The wet gloves stay on your hands. You understand that the first sale came from kneeling beside the pipe. You carry the rusted drum machine back up the basement stairs. Both arms shake. At the rear door of the van, you load the rusted drum machine onto the dirty floor. You leave the old receipt book beside the driver's seat. You turn back toward the rear shelves. The dirty cable hangs from your gloved hands over a basement drain. Level 2. First repeat customers. You pull into a townhouse parking spot. 3 customers have asked for your name during 1 week. On the clipboard invoice, you read $62,000 per year. The handwritten customer notes sit beside the number. You compare $210,000 annual demand across 3 nearby neighborhoods to the phone number service stickers. The service stickers are stacked in the van. At the van side door, you slide the door open. You pull the metal cutter head cassette from the shelf. You set the cassette on the van floor. You open the row of drain cleaning heads. The root cutter stays under your thumb. You check the inspection camera reel. You clip the inspection camera reel to your leather tool belt. At the customer bathroom, you unroll the disposable floor mat across the bathroom tile. You keep the wet cable root inside the mat edges. You touch the cleanout under the sink. Under the sink, you guide the inspection camera lens into the cleanout. You watch the pipe bend through the small monitor hood. The cassette lies open on the mat. You choose the root cutter for the bend. You lock the root cutter onto the cable with the tiny set screw. On the magnetic tray, you magnetize the tiny set screw. You change heads again. You guide the spinning cable through the bend. The cable does not scrape the bathroom tile. The leather tool belt rides against your hip. You keep the cable centered. You spray the cable clean. The cable does not touch the customer's floor. In the narrow hallway, you lift the cable loop over the disposable mat edge. You keep the wet cable away from the hallway carpet. You tighten the loop into the drum. At the customer garage, you press the phone number service sticker inside the garage cabinet door. You peel the old plumber sticker from the cabinet door. You press your sticker flat. The customer stands by the sink. You point toward the clear water running in the basin. You clamp the invoice under the clipboard. You mark the job complete. You keep the cutter head cassette open. You check every slot. At the van side door, you restock the cutter head cassette inside the van. You pause over the row of sharp heads. You understand that speed now comes from choosing earlier. The cassette locks on the shelf. You close the van side door. You leave the townhouse parking spot. The service sticker is already inside the customer garage. A row of sharp drain cleaning heads sits open inside the van. Level 3, Saturday call storm. You stop at the gas station by the highway. The smartphone buzzes inside the rugged case. On the fuel card receipt, you read $95,000 per year. The pump number sits beside the revenue figure. You compare $390,000 annual demand to the laminated service zone map. The demand comes from expanding into a 25-kilometer service radius. In the driver's seat of the van, you pin the laminated service map against the steering wheel. You circle 3 emergency addresses with the glass marker. The travel mug stays in the cup holder. You keep the phone on speaker. You reject the farthest call. You turn the phone face down. At the gas station pump, you refuel the van. The next customer waits on speaker. You hold the laminated service zone map against the wheel. You choose the shorter route first. At the plumbing supply parking lot, you leave the van. You do not take a cart. You grab P-trap gaskets from the plumbing store shelf. You return to the driver's seat. The box of P-trap gaskets rides on the passenger seat. The spare glove pack sits beside the gaskets. You park behind the apartment block. You set the folding road cone by the rear door. At the apartment building entrance, you carry only the small cable machine up the stairwell. You clear the kitchen line. You rinse black sludge from the trap into a bucket. The portable flashlight stays clipped to your belt. You keep the stairwell route open. You drive to the private house backyard. The yard cleanout is already circled on the map. At the private house backyard, you open the rear cleanout. You feed the heavier cable from outside. The laminated service zone map stays on the van seat. You avoid crossing the unprofitable edge. At the self-service wash bay, you rinse both machines. The next call waits. You cross out the final address on the laminated map with your thumb. The map is wet against the steering wheel. You understand that choosing the right pipe beats chasing every ring. You leave the smartphone face down beside the rugged case. You grip the steering wheel. A service zone map on the steering wheel is covered with emergency circles. Level 4, First Helper. You open the hero's garage. A new pair of thick rubber gloves is tucked under your arm. On the tablet checklist, you read $135,000 per year. The First Helper training line sits beside the number. You compare $620,000 annual demand in the recognized service zone to the branded work shirt. The branded work shirt is folded on the van step. At the rear step of the van, you toss the new rubber gloves in front of the helper. You hold the clear training pipe section up. You push the cable through the bend. The helper watches from the van step. You keep the old trap head raised. You tap the old trap head against the pipe wall. You show the wrong sound. The helper tries to force the cable too hard. You stop the helper's wrist. Safety glasses sit on your face. You guide the helper's gloved hands onto the trigger grip. You enter the bathroom in a rental house. The small drum cable sits on the plastic tray. You stand behind the helper. The helper feeds the small drum cable into the bathtub drain. The bathtub drain catches once. You hold back from taking the trigger. You point at the customer towels guarding the white-walled hallway. In the white-walled hallway, you keep the helper behind the towel line. Shoe covers go on. You make the helper pull the cable back slowly into the plastic tray. At the trash bin area outside, you make the helper keep the old trap head over the tray. The helper wipes the cable clean. The helper coils the cable. You nod only after the cable is clean. At the tool wash bay, you make the helper rinse the machine. You do not take the handle back. You pull the branded work shirt over the helper's shoulder. You point to the van logo. The helper stands by the rear step. You check the tablet checklist. You read the checklist again. You understand that every clear drain now carries your method through another pair of hands. You stand beside the rear step. The helper loads the machine. A clean pair of rubber gloves waits on the step of a dirty service van. Level 5, Property Management Contract. You arrive at the property management office. You carry the small pipe stack model against your side. On the emergency address list, you read $210,000 per year beside your company name. You compare $1,100,000 annual emergency maintenance budget to the rate calculator. The budget covers local rental buildings. The rate calculator sits on the negotiation table. At the negotiation table, you lay the flooded basement photos across the surface in a single row. You hook one numbered building key off the property manager's heavy ring. The manager's coffee cup stays beyond the flood photos. You keep the key tag visible. You match the numbered key tag to the emergency address list. The property manager points to the discount column. You push the rate calculator back. The pipe stack model stands between both sides. You tap the model where the main line backs up. You turn the tablet duty calendar toward the property manager. You block out night coverage on the tablet duty calendar. You touch the key ring again. In the corridor with the maintenance board, you hold the helper's ID badge beside the emergency address list. You walk the property manager to the office parking lot. You open the van shelves. At the office parking lot, you show the cutter heads and clean mats in their shelf positions. You drive with the property manager to the test building. You do not stay in the office. At the basement of the test building, you carry the pipe stack model. The manager's key ring hangs beside the model. You unlock the boiler room door with the numbered master key. Inside the boiler room door, you show the main cleanout. You point to the exact access point. The property manager nods. You close your hand around the full key ring. The key ring is heavy in your fist. You understand that the deal is a route you must reach before water crosses the threshold. You keep the full key ring off the negotiation table. You carry the keys toward the van. A heavy ring of apartment building keys hangs from your fist. Level 6. Second van, first technician. You stand in the lot beside two vans. The second service van key ring is in your hand. On the van inspection sheet, you read $310,000 per year. The second service district line sits beside the number. You compare $1,850,000 annual demand to the blank uniform shirt. The demand comes after adding a second service district. The blank uniform shirt is clipped to the van door. You line up two candidates beside the second van. At the open van door, you clip the blank uniform shirt where both candidates can see the logo. You point each candidate toward the test clog inside the training pipe. In the storage garage, you set the cutter head set beside the training pipe stand. You start the stopwatch. The first candidate feeds the cable. The first candidate works the cable. You watch the boot position. You stop the clock. You inspect the cable for kinks. You give the second candidate the root cutter. You do not give the second candidate the soft head. At the training pipe stand, you make the second candidate protect the floor with the safety mat. The safety mat lies flat. You watch the second candidate touch the pipe. In the cab of the second van, you press the handheld radio into the chosen technician's palm. You make the chosen technician answer from inside the cab. The first aid kit stays clipped beside the seat. You check the van shelves. You walk the chosen technician through the van shelves. You cover one compartment at a time. At the rental building courtyard, you fasten the van key onto the technician's belt loop. You send the technician toward the customer's rear door. You remain by the first van. The key ring is off your hand. You understand that trust now has to drive without your boots in the room. You keep your hand on the first van door. The technician crosses the rental building courtyard. Two van keys hang between two candidates in a garage. Level 7. Training day for the team. You roll the cutaway clear sewer pipe into the middle of the rented training bay. On the error logbook page, you read $480,000 per year. The 5-district service line sits beside the number. You compare $3,200,000 annual demand to the complaint entry in the logbook. The demand covers 5 districts and property management contracts. At the clear pipe stand, you pour the fake grease clog into the open pipe section. You line 4 technicians behind 4 drum machines. The tripod timer stays aimed at the pipe. You hold the colored tags. You tie colored tags onto the correct cutter heads for each clog type. At the cutter head table, you place the wrong head beside the error hook. You demonstrate one slow cable feed through the transparent bend. The transparent bend shows the cable scrape. You force the feed too fast for training. A technician forces the cable too fast. You slap the pipe. You make the team restart with clean mats under every machine. At the clean mat zone, you point to the clean zone sign. The drill begins again. You open the error logbook to last month's scratched floor complaint. You time each technician clearing the fake grease clog. The rubber aprons hang wet. You keep your hands off the active cable. You remove the wrong head from one machine. You hang the wrong head on the error hook. At the tool washing area, you send the team to rinse the cables. You stand at the clean zone sign. The technicians reload the vans at the roll-up doors. The error logbook stays open. You understand that the company standard is now the pipe you clear first. You stay beside the clear pipe stand. The 4 drum machines face the roll-up doors. 4 technicians face one transparent pipe full of fake black grease. Level 8. A service night without your hands. You arrive at the dark office parking lot. 2 vans are already gone. On the route tablet, you read $720,000 per year. The overnight shift route sits beside the number. You compare $5,600,000 annual demand in the city to the night dispatch radio. The night dispatch radio sits on the dispatcher's desk. At the dispatcher's desk, you lift the radio. You listen without speaking. You trace the route on the tablet with the red inspection marker. The night dispatcher keeps the headsets at the desk. You follow the marked route. You drive to the apartment building courtyard. The technician has already entered. At the apartment building courtyard, you take the property management master keys from your pocket. You unlock the building basement with the master key. You stand behind the technician. At the building basement doorway, you watch the technician feed the cable. You stay outside the work path. You check the floor mat edge with the toe of your boot. The technician tightens the cleanout cap. You inspect the cleanout cap. The spare shoe covers remain in your pocket. You hold the cutter head seal. You seal the used cutter head inside the clear evidence bag. At the technician's van cargo area, you open the van drawer. You count the missing protective covers inside the van drawer. You mark the failed compartment on the van cleanliness checklist with the red inspection marker. At the dirty head storage shelf, you return the sealed dirty head under the technician's name. You keep the evidence bag in your hand. You understand that inspection replaces rescue on a service night. You leave the sealed dirty head on the office shelf under the technician's name. A dirty cutter head is sealed inside a clear inspection bag. Level 9. Opening the emergency service hub. You stand at the gate of the new service yard. The large brass gate key is in your hand. On the shift opening journal, you read $1,250,000 per year. The opening page sits beside the number. You compare $9,800,000 annual demand to the wall map of districts. The demand covers emergency drain cleaning, riser maintenance, and scheduled hydro jetting. At the gate of the new service yard, you unlock the service yard gate with the brass key. You raise the branded service sign over the roll-up door.
The hydrojetting trailer waits inside the yard. You keep the brass key on your belt. You cut the red seal off the new high-pressure hydrojetting trailer. At the cable washing station, you pull the high-pressure hose across the wash bay floor. You lock the new cutter heads into numbered bins on the stock wall. Inside the cutter head stockroom, you leave the old rusted drum machine under a stockroom shelf. You hang the master keyboard inside the dispatch room. At the dispatch room wall, you point the night dispatcher toward the wall map of districts. You open the shift journal. You stamp the first page with the company mark. In the pipe training bay, you walk past the training pipe. You do not touch the cable machine. You stand between the numbered vans. Technicians take their keys. At the van parking row, you keep your hands off every van door. You signal the first hydrojet crew toward the gate. You watch 3 vans roll out.
You close the shift journal. The shift journal is closed. You understand that the emergency calls now enter a place instead of one pair of hands. You stay behind the open service yard gate. The hydrojetting trailer waits in the yard. The old rusted drum machine sits retired under a stockroom shelf. New vans leave the service yard in a line.